Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So let's have a look at part 2 of the handicap analysis, which is for those over fences. And we'll start off with Calico, who I thought was given a terrible ride. Harry went far too early on him, which is the same sort of thing he did at Cheltenham the time before. He went too early and got run down by a triple trade. I don't know why he's going so early. Just be a little bit more patient on him. And yeah, I think I thought he was well handicapped 2 runs ago. I still think he's well handicapped, and he's dropped in the handicap. He's down £1 to 142. Where do you go with him? Well, I think it's pretty clear. You won a race before at Doncaster for 20 grand, 2 mile at Doncaster. Surely you go back there again for this race here. Final race on the card at Doncaster on the 27th of January. I think he would go very close. And if a horse later on in the video doesn't appear, then I think he would take all of the beating. But yeah, he just needs to be ridden a bit more patiently. I mean, Kicking for Home was 6 to go, 6 furlongs to go, and they were really going for it. And I mean, he fell into a hole, and those that were off the bridle, the winner, the middle and part racing, the owners group horse. Was it owners group? No, it wasn't. It was a Brian Drew horse, wasn't it? Off the bridle, looked in trouble, looked in all sorts of trouble, because they were going for home for so early. It turned into like a 2.5 mile race the way he ran that. The second horse I want to talk about is Easy As That, who's dropped £1 to 137. He was interesting because he finished 6th at Cheltenham over 2.5 mile in a race that I think will work out well. And they then stepped him up 6 furlongs. They stepped him up massively, considering he'd never been any further than 2 mile 5. They went up to 3 mile 2 straight away. And he went off 7 to 2 for a good race. And just didn't stay, did he? He didn't even get really involved and just didn't stay, faded away, and was well beaten in the end. But he dropped £1 for that. And I think if we go back, excuse me, my voice just went there for some reason. If we went back to his 6th place at Cheltenham the time before, I think that was good enough to suggest that off 137 he could go well. And where would I go with him? I'd go for this race at Musselburgh. This one here. It's a 2.5 mile race, so it's back to the trip that he would, I think really suits him. And it's for horses rated 0 to 145, so he wouldn't feature, he wouldn't be in against those that are right, are much better than him. He'd be in against horses that are around his mark. Plus, I think it'd be slightly easier because it's at Musselburgh. It'd be an easier 0 to 145 than if he ran at Newbury, for example. And yeah, for Venetia Williams, I think he would go very close in that. They clearly think he's well handicapped. The fact that he went off 7 to 2 when stepped up in trip to 3 mile 2. He doesn't need that. But back at Musselburgh, where he has won before, he won a bumper. Let's just see who he beat that day. Did he beat anyone interesting? He beat Onward Route and so not a lot of Grumpy McGrumpface, brilliant name. He didn't beat a lot that day, but he still won a bumper carrying a penalty. So he clearly acts well at Musselburgh. So that's surely where you go with him for this 2.5 mile handicap on the 1st of January, so a couple of weeks. 0 to 145 at Musselburgh. The next horse I want to talk about is Lord de Menil, who finished 2nd. He's actually finished 2nd 4 times in his last 6 runs, or 5 times in his last 9 runs. He's running well, and he's dropping in the handicap. He's now very well handicapped. And yeah, I think next time could be the time for him, because hopefully it's in the Unibet Veterans Handicap Steeplechase, the Veteran Chase Series finale, or final. It's over 3 mile, so a better trip for him. Back up in trip, which is what he wants. I mean, his 2nd at Cheltenham in April was a good run. His 2nd at Carlisle over 3 mile was a good run. His 2nd at Bangor wasn't a bad run. He wants 3 mile. He just got badly outpaced over 2.5 before running on strongly. But I think that was the plan, in the fact that they could get him another run, they could get fitness into him, and then they could go back for a race that they qualified for by simply running at Sandown. You qualify for the final by running. As long as you're high enough rated, as long as you run in a qualifier, you're in the final. And I think he will be in the final off 144. He should get in, back over 3 mile. I think he'll go really close there, to be honest. On the 6th of January. The next horse I want to talk about is Walking Clover, who dropped £1 to 121. And that mark will come into effect on Saturday. Just see if they've updated it. They have. Walking Clover could run here off 10 stone 1. I think it'd be very interesting if she ran on Saturday, sorry. I don't think she stayed the 2.5 mile trip, and I think the way the race was run, they went so slowly, she was far too keen. Hopefully, if something else in the race, potentially even the other Dan Skelton horse, Dan Skelton puts Harry on and puts Bridget on Walking Clover, and Harry goes forward and makes it a good pace, or just allows Walking Clover to settle. They don't even have to go that hard. Just let him settle. Her settle, sorry. I think she would go very close in this race, the Howland Handicap. And it's decent prize money. It's 18 grand for the winner. You know, it's not too bad. That's what I think Dan and Harry would have their best chance of winning this with Walking Clover, not with Chambleu. But wherever she goes next, if she does drop in trips slightly, I think she's interesting because I just think she was far too keen, beaten by some nice types really, or very well handicapped horses. Moving on to Funambule Savola, who dropped £2 to 148. Now, this horse is another one who could be seen in this race at Doncaster, the final race on the day on the 27th of January against Calico. If he was... Is it a he? Yes. If Funambule Savola also ran in that race, I would definitely be on Funambule Savola over Calico. The reason for that is he's rated 148. He does stay 2 mile. He does act well at Doncaster. And he does... Oh, I think he'd be given a better ride than Calico. He actually won this race a couple of years ago. Back in 2022, he won it. He went a 5-4 favourite, running off a mark of 152. A £4 higher mark, he went off the 5-4 favourite. What price will he go off if he runs next month? You know, if you get anything like 2-1 about him, I think it's a great price. I really think he will take all of the beating in that if he wins. And I think they'll be trying to win because they'll be trying to get him back full of confidence, ready for a return to Newbury in February for the Game Spirit Chase. You can see they won it in 2022, and they won it in 2023, and they could turn up in 2024 and potentially win it again off the back of a win at Doncaster, where I think if he turns up, unless something ridiculously progressive turns up, I don't think there'll be many better handicapped horses than Funambule Savola. 2 more to go. The penultimate one, is Montmiral, who dropped £3 to 142, and I think he was entitled to get tired on his first run for 245 days, considering how fast they went. They went really fast, those two at the front, Il Rodotto and the other horse who I didn't think stayed 2.5 mile. I can't remember who it was. Frere Bamboo, wasn't it? Il Rodotto and Frere Bamboo. I don't think they went so fast, and Harry Cobden actually came in and said, you know, we was always going a stride faster than usual in these types of races. So I think the handicapper dropping him £3 was quite kind in the fact that if they'd gone a normal pace, he went off 4-1. They clearly thought a lot of him. They clearly think he's nicely handicapped. He's very well handicapped now off 142, and I can't imagine them next time going so hard at the front and the race being run at such a fast pace. Interestingly as well, nothing actually picked up from the back other than Fugitive. The front two actually managed to stay there because I think they got into a nice rhythm together and they got running together. All the others kind of got further behind and didn't really know what to do. There is a race in January, New Year's Day, that they could go for, the 2.5 mile handicap at Cheltenham. But I think off the back of his first run for 245 days, plus the way it was run, he kind of might need a little bit longer than that. And you could certainly come back for this race on the 27th of January, the 2.5 mile Premier Handicap, the Paddy Power Cheltenham Countdown Podcast Handicap. Steeplechase, what a mouthful that is. That's where I think they could come back. Off 142, I think he would go very, very close. With that run under his belt. And the final horse I want to talk about is Alaphilippe, who I think actually made my horses to follow, or was certainly one I was interested in last season, but didn't run because he was injured. And that came off the back of finishing second in a Pertemps final at Cheltenham behind Third Wind. I thought the race was good. I thought that horse was very progressive. Alaphilippe, third wind, has obviously got down to a nice handicap mark. This season he's come back and he's gone straight over fences, and he's had 3 very quick runs, October, November, December. And I kind of feel that this is for experience, not for with the future in mind. His second on his return, albeit well beaten, wasn't a bad run at Carlisle. He then went to Cheltenham and pulled up in a race that was probably too tricky for him at this stage of his career. And then he finished third of 3 at Leicester, behind behind Apple Away, and that Owners Group horse, which is it Making Your Mind Up? Is that the name? Making Your Mind Up, yeah. Apple Away and Making Your Mind Up. Now, Apple Away is a Grade 1 horse, and certainly proved she was a Grade 1 horse by winning that in the manner she did. Making Your Mind Up, there wasn't a lot between them two in the handicap anyway, so only being beaten a length and a bit, it wasn't the worst run, to be honest. And the handicapper dropped him £5 for that. I thought that was very, very kind. Maybe now is the time to go over a handicap. You've had 3 runs, October, November, December. Give him January off, come back in February, and there is this 3-mile handicap for horses rated 0 to 130, the Cairns Handicap Steeplechase at Carlisle. Now, he went to Carlisle, and granted, it wasn't a bad run. Granted, he was well beaten, but it wasn't a bad run behind a decent horse in Good Risk at all. In a handicap, off 130, in a 0 to 130, I mean, he's not even got to beat decent horses anymore. I think he would win that. And then you can look at what you do March, April, May with him. If they're prepared to wait, it's actually 2 months to the day, isn't it? It feels like a long time, but he's had the run in December now. Give him that month off in January, having already had 3 runs. Come back in February, and I think they would take all of the beating in that. And then they could potentially look at the Ultima at the Cheltenham Festival. His second in the Potemps off 138. If he got into the Ultima, you would imagine he could go very close off around 140. So they're my horses over fences that I think are interesting. Starting off with Calico for that race at Doncaster. The problem with that is Funambule Savola might also turn up there, who I think would beat him. I do like Calico, though. I think he's well handicapped. Easy as that. Doesn't want that far. A drop and trip I think would be ideal for this race at Musselburgh, where he has won before. Lord de Menil can now go back up and trip, off a lower mark, back to Sandown, which he qualified for the final by running at Sandown. I think that was very interesting, how you qualify for that final. Walking Clover could run at the weekend. I think if she does, she will go very close off a very low weight. Funambule Savola, as I said, I think would take all of the beating in that race at Newbury and Doncaster, before going on to Newbury for the Game Spirit Chase. Montmoral dropped £3. I think that was kind, considering it was his first run and they went so fast. Certainly come back for Cheltenham in January. And finally, Alaphilippe dropped £5 for actually not a bad run, beaten by a Grade 1 horse. He's now very nicely handicapped. If they're prepared to wait until February, this 0 to 130 at Carlisle, where he didn't run badly behind Good Risk at all, I think he would win that race, to be honest. So yeah, there's some thoughts for those over fences.